Hi and welcome to a new Studio Secrets video. This is continuing on from the last one, and that's when I showed you how to create a bootleg. So in this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through arranging that bootleg. First off, I'll show you how to compare tracks. So we're going to look at a few house tracks at the moment and see what their arrangement is like. Then we'll jump into the bootleg project and we'll start arranging that. So first off, we'll do a basic arrangement to try and get the whole idea of where the track's going, and then kind of filling out all the bits within that. So adding effects, adding some nice techniques that can kind of build up the track, and then finally just doing a rough master on it. Now the whole point of this bootleg is to do it nice and quick, so I'm going to try and make this video as quick as possible. But the whole idea is that you make the bootleg, it's for your set, so you want to make it quite quick and quite easily. You don't want to be spending loads of time on finding your sounds, you don't want to spend loads of time on refining it. It's just about being a tool or a weapon that you can use within your sets, or if you want to send it on to other DJs. So I'm going to jump into that now, and first of all we're going to go through comparing some arrangements from house tracks already out there. Right, so getting into this tutorial, what I thought I'd do is I'd have a look at some arrangements first, arrangements of other tracks, because that's the way you really kind of learn how to arrange tracks. If you're a DJ, then you've already kind of got a head start on that. You kind of know how songs are structured, with their intros, their main, their breakdowns and their outros. You kind of understand how tracks made because obviously you mix them in all the time. However, what we can do is we can have a look at like 3 tracks I picked out here. We've got Alex Kenji, Screen Set. We have ATFC The Blues, that's the Proc and Fitch remix, and DJ Laura, Shine On Me. These are just 3 that I randomly picked out from my collection. Some tracks I've been playing in my sets, and it's a good idea just to kind of dissect some of these and see how they're kind of made up. Each genre has kind of got their own way of arranging, and you'll probably notice that as you go along. Some have got more breaks than others. Some don't have breaks, and it's just a case of dissecting each one in turn and using kind of the methods that fit in your genre well. But that's obviously not to say that you can't just mix all these up. So let's kind of get into the first one first. Let's have a look at Alex Kenji. Now, what you'll probably find out here is that I usually measure in minutes and seconds rather than beats and bars. I mean, it depends which background you come from. If you come from a producing background, then you're probably going to talk about bars. But I come from mainly a DJ kind of background, so I kind of I think about when I'm going to be mixing in a track. And I know usually with most tracks, the first minute is usually just plain beats. That's for you're mixing in. Now this obviously, as I say, depends on what genre you're in. Some start quicker, the break comes in quicker, some don't have a break, they just go straight into the main track. So what I thought is I pick out 3 here that seem to do it a bit differently. So let's play the Alex Kenji one first. So we kind of got standard kind of just beats going for the first at least 30 seconds. And I think we've actually got a stronger kick coming in at about 30 seconds. Yeah, so the kick almost doubles. The kind of lower end of the kick comes in and gives it a bit more of a thump. Obviously, this is the intros are made for DJs so they can mix in easily. So you don't want to put too many harmonic qualities within your first part of your song, because obviously, unless a DJ is harmonically mixing, then it'll be hard to get from one song to the other. So yeah, so the first 30 seconds there are just beats, and he's introducing some vocals in here just to kind of bring the characteristics of the track in. So there you go. I've just played the first minute and a half by the looks of it there. Obviously this depends on what tempo your track is, So I've beat mapped all of these to 125, so we can kind of easily see that, you know, it can be split up into like 30-second chunks or 15-second chunks. You can kind of split up a track that way. So the first 30 seconds are just light beats. The next 30 seconds up to a minute are kind of a bit stronger beats, and then the characteristics of the track, some of the melody is coming in about 1 minute up to 1 minute and a half, and then that's when the first breakdown happens. So, you know, if you're a DJ, you've got the first minute and a half to mix in there, and then you come straight into the breakdown. Now this is quite a long breakdown for the first breakdown. It's a much slower track. I think the original's 121. So depending on your crowd, you might still be mixing in, you know, the last track in here just to keep the beats going, or you might just want to, you know, relax the floor a bit, so you give this the whole break. So as we can see from here, the break goes quite low, and then it gradually builds up. So there we can see it's, you know, it's kind of breaks here with no beats, then a kind of kick, then the bass kind of comes in. You've got a light kick that comes in about here, and then everything comes in about here. So we've got what was that, about a minute and a half, maybe about a minute and a half, I would say, something about that, a minute and 15 of breakdown there. That might be a bit too much, but, you know, each to their own. And then, you know, and then they play through for a main bit here. So as you see, just by kind of skipping through the track, you can kind of separate this track as to how it kind of works. So if I use the Apple and E, so that's the kind of split, split command. I can split this up so I can separate the track, so we can see that, like, this is the first beat. So I say this has got the kick coming in. Then this bit here, we've got we've got some more characteristics coming in. The break is broken up into about 3 or 4 different bits. So we've got the just a plain instrumental bit here. Then we got the bass and clap coming in here, which plays for a few bars. Then we got the bass and the vocal coming in here. And then here we've got like the kick coming in. So he's slowly introducing elements, in this breakdown. He's actually put, the kicks in there just to kind of move things along a bit. And then it finally all comes in here. So, in this main bit, it's just instrumental. We've got the bass going, the kick going, the main drums. There's a lot of hi-hats in there. I think the hi-hats actually break out about here. I think there's a bit of atmosphere going in there somewhere. Maybe there was an effect that started here that kind of lasted through here, because it sounds a bit more stripped out here, even though he's putting the vocal there. So there you go, and the breakdown is almost the same as the first one. Actually, it's extended a little bit, but it's pretty much all there. So as you can see, just by going through here and just kind of splitting up, you can kind of see the where things are introduced and and how to do it. So that's a kind of more laid back kind of house tracks. So things are kind of brought in kind of nicely and gently. There's no big risers. There's no kind of big kind of anything kind of building too dramatically, because it's a more stripped back kind of beat. So it's it's kind of just gently layering stuff and taking things away, putting things in there as the track progresses. Now, if we jump into the ATFC, the Blues remix by Proc and Fitch, their technique's a bit more, all to the dance floor. This is more of a bigger room kind of remix. This is their classic remix, and I really like what they've done with this one. But for the first minute of the track, we've actually got no kick or anything else like that. It's just percussion and vocals. So if I start off from the start.
It's a blues year, and America was born on the slave man's auction block. Slave.
So this is kind of a very kind of brave kind of intro. This is, in one way, this is quite friendly to a DJ. In another way, it might not be. If you're mixing out another track, then obviously you take away the bass from the other track and add the bass to the of the track that you're mixing in, and you kind of you cut one out and then put the other one in. Now with this track, you can obviously lay the first first minute of it over some beats, so you can leave the low end in of the first track, and you have this playing over the top with the low end fully open, because there's no low end in this part at all. So it's kind of very friendly to a DJ, this one. And if you're making this for your own DJ sets, then this is a kind of almost like a tool that you'd make. It means you're going to be fiddling around less with the EQs when you're DJing out, because you don't really need to drop the low end away when you mix this track in. It will just happily sit across the top of the track before. So this is, it's a nice kind of interesting intro to a track, and and then it obviously fully comes in at 1 minute, so there's no kind of first breakdown, whereas this one had a minute and a half and then a breakdown and then goes into the main thing. The main thing pretty much starts at 1 minute here, so it's kind of you're already getting the the track going.
It's a blues year.
So you have a mini kind of breakdown here, about 1 minute 30, 1 minute 45. So this is just a small break, just to kind of give it a bit of release from the actual from the main beat, just kicking behind it. So this is just a simple, probably 30-second breakdown, just to give a bit of variation to the track and introduce the vocals for the track.
The blues grew up.
So there's almost 2 parts here. You got this one which is a bit more characteristical. This has got loads of pianos in it. And then the pianos are taken away here. So you've kind of got this first bit which is like bass and beats with a bit of vocal. Then the vocal comes in for the breakdown, and the piano is introduced.
It's a blues year.
So the piano is just gently filtered up, and then the piano comes in full at this part. And then we've kind of got the cool down here. This is the kind of, so you've got usually what you have your intro, then you have the first part of the track, then your vocal, the first breakdown. Then you have like the kind of main part of the track, and then just before the main breakdown, you have this kind of cool down kind of area. This kind of takes the track back down in energy. So you kind of you're building a lot of energy at the first start of the track, and then you kind of cool down just before the breakdown. So there's not kind of massive just kind of drop into the breakdown. You're kind of cooling the dance floor down a bit, getting ready for this this main kind of breakdown.
Blues grew up in small town deprivation. In Langston's poetry.
I mean, this gets kind of very kind of very low in the fact that you've only got the kind of piano and the vocal in here.
In Langston's poetry on the acid rock from
So again, I mean, if you look at these 2 tracks, they're completely kind of different arrangements, but it kind of fits the kind of the feel that you're going for with it. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of more that's a more authentic kind of usual arrangement for a house track. Certainly a tech house kind of bigger room tech house kind of track. Now, if we move on to DJ Laura Shine On Me, let's see what this one sounds like. again, this is almost identical to the one above, the Prog and Fitch remix. In the first 30 seconds, you've just got the percussions with no kick drum, or you've got a high passed kick drum. Because you want to be able to mix in the track before, so it fits in nicely over the track before. And then the kick kind of comes in. That's probably when you might take away the bass from the previous track and then mix the bass into this track. So it's it's kind of that nice transition. But given this kind of stripped back start to a track will help a DJ be able to mix into it a lot easier. And then with this track, like the one above, there is kind of no mini breakdown. There's no mini breakdown before the main part. It just goes straight into it. So at 1 minute, it goes straight into the track. Actually, no, let's say that we've got this kind of mini breakdown here. Kind of just breaks away here. So you got so you got the first 30 seconds, percussion and some some melodics going in. Without any kick, and then you got the kick for about 15 seconds, and then you got this mini breakdown here for about 15 seconds before the main track comes in. So this is a good example of a very short kind of intro getting into a track. It seems to be more the trend these days to have a less of an intro. Back in the day, obviously when you were on vinyl, beat matching was a lot harder. So you had more. You needed more time to kind of get those beats in sync before you did the mix. But obviously with digital today and with syncing and with general equipment being a lot more reliable, then you don't have to worry so much about that. So and also attention spans of audiences as well. You don't need that. You don't need the large intros that you had before. Saying that, of course, obviously you do need the intros. You're not going to be able to mix in with just like 15 seconds or 30 seconds worth of beats. So as a good measure, try to give at least a minute's worth of beats at the start. You might have some vocals going in there or whatever, but at least have some beats in there at the start. So again, let's play on this from about a minute into the track. So this is a kind of very slow builder of a track. It just gradually introduces different elements as you go on. So you're starting off quite low with just the kick and some of the percussion. And then again, you've got this kind of mini break here. So again, so you got the mini break here, and then you're back into it again. Deep in my soul, I've got love. And you got a very sharp break here, so it just kind of gives some attention to the track. This is obviously a very famous vocal, so you kind of want to bring attention to the fact that vocal's in the track, which is why obviously everything's been dropped. So you got this kind of pad sound going in the background and the vocal, because obviously you want to bring full attention to the fact that this is a very well-known vocal, and people will be, hey, this is the big track that they love. So so the full advantage of having this vocal has been brought by just stripping it back. Deep in my soul, deep in my soul, open up your heart and shine on me. So again, there's another breakdown. There's quite a few breakdowns in this track. I think it's just a kind of, the beat and the bass is kind of fluid throughout. So obviously you don't want to have 7 minutes full of this, the same thing. By breaking it down and taking some of the parts away, you're giving a bit of rest and you're giving a bit of variation to the track without having to add, a load of different stuff on. So you don't need to worry about, having, 20 different layers of sounds going on through a track. It's as much about taking stuff away as it is introducing stuff. So depending on the kind of house that you make, what you add and what you take away, is totally up to you and your sound and the kind of genre, really. So I think we've gone through enough with this comparison anyway. Hopefully you can kind of see, by studying tracks that are within your genre, within your style of house, you can kind of see how they how they arrange tracks. And also as you go along as a producer, you kind of know how you want your track to build. Especially if you're a DJ producer, you'll know how you want to mix that track in. So you might choose to make a track with just with some very light percussion at the start and some vocal effects, so that you can mix it into your sets a lot easier. And you're also making you're making this kind of very custom thing to you, because you'll know how to mix that in, and that'll make it it'll make it more of a tool and more unique to you. But obviously, if you're releasing this track, then you want as many DJs to you don't want to make it awkward for DJs to mix in. So have some thought about that. But if as we're on the kind of bootleg tip at the moment, this is probably going to be mostly for your own sets. So make something that kind of fits in with your kind of set. So that's the comparison done. What we'll do now is we'll jump into the project that we were working on, the bootleg. So this is the project as we left it. I'm trying to remember what we actually did with it. I think it's just loading into the waveforms at the moment. So if you just have a quick playthrough of what it sounds like once the samples have all buffered. At the moment, obviously, we have this loop here, and I don't want to go. I always recommend to anybody that I work with, or that that I'm tutoring, or that ask me a question, don't try not to stay in this kind of loop for too long, because people almost fear this kind of loop, because you'll build up everything that you want to use in that track, but you won't know how to move forward with it. You've got this great loop, but it's not a track. So so you need to kind of get out of this loop as soon as possible, which is why I've kind of got most of the kind of feel for the track, and I've come up with some ideas of what we can do with it, but we need to start arranging before we add too much stuff to it, because obviously that's gonna it's gonna have an effect on how we arrange it. So let's just play the loop through and see how it sounds at the moment. Yep, so we kind of got our we got a good base for the track there. I think we've named most of these stuff up. I think we should actually prepare some of these percussion, because they're not being given names yet. So I'll just get rid of this out of the way, so we've got some room here. And I'm just going to go through each one of these layers and just make sure they're named. And so we got what have we got here? I think it's a bit of percussion, isn't it? Yeah, so just a very kind of basic kind of bit of percussion. So I'm just going to group all this together so we can loop it out nice and easily. So consolidate that, Apple and J if you're on a Mac. I'm not quite sure what the keyboard shortcut is for the PC. Again, it's just consolidate that one there. I've done that. Again, I've got to turn that into a loop. I really kind of wish they did this as an option, so it automatically create a loop when you consolidate something. That would be great. So we'll name that one up. We'll call that hat clap, because that's basically what it's got in it. What have we got going on in here? I think this is more hats. Oh no, we've just got a bit of percussion going on there. We've EQ'd that. That's good. Again, I'll consolidate this one into a loop, and we'll call that, I guess it's a kind of tom, so I'm just going to call it that. we got a shaker there. Make sure that's labeled up. That's just kind of a nice top loop there that's just adds a bit of detail into the mix. That's quite a thumping kick. So we've done all the EQing on that, that's fine. Got the lighter kick. And that's our bass. I think we need to cut a bit more off the bottom end. I think that's seems to be just muddying up a bit on the bottom. Just because it's a bass sound, don't think that you need to leave as much of the bottom end in. Obviously that's where the bass kind of lives, but the more kind of you have on the bottom end, the much muddier it sounds. And bass is quite a really strange kind of instrument, because you think of bass and you think it in the lower register, but often the best bass is kind of cross, right up into the, across the whole range of frequencies, and that's kind of what the upper frequencies are the things that you hear. You obviously want to leave some of the bass in there so people can feel it, but not so much that it kind of interferes. So I'm just cutting a bit, I've just cut a bit more off there, just kind of give it a little less muddiness down the bottom. So we got that. I want to know what this bit is here. I know we cut it up, but I can't remember. I think we... Oh yes, we've passed it there. That'll be why. Yes, that's got the kick on it. I don't think we're going to need that. We can always put the kick in ourselves if we want that. We've also got this one at the top here that we haven't used. We might come back to that one. I'm not sure what to do with that one, but we'll just mute that for now. Right, so yeah, so as I was saying before, with the arrangements, most things kind of start about the minute mark or the minute and a half mark. Now I think with this track, I won't bother with any kind of breakdown, and we'll copy like that kind of Shine On Me kind of track, maybe, or maybe the Proc and Fitch one, where we'll just have a minute's worth of kind of light percussion, and we'll just go straight into the track. We might have a little bit of a kind of mini breakdown before the minute mark, but we kind of want to start everything from here. So so yeah, we'll move the loop that we have already. I'll move this up. Not that we need this one yet. So yeah, so I moved everything up to the 1 minute mark. So that's... In fact, we don't want the synth there yet, so we'll move the synth up a bit, because that'll be... we'll use that a bit later on. So I'm just going to move these out of the way, just somewhere up the timeline. I don't know where we're gonna use that, but we'll start from here. Right, so we'll start off by putting some light kick in at the start. So we have about 30 seconds worth of light kick in there. Get rid of the loop. Ooh, I've moved up to the wrong layer. There we go. So 30 seconds worth of light kick, 30 seconds worth of the deep kick, and then we'll drop it out for a little bit before that minute mark comes in, and then we'll do that. Now we've got our percussion here, so I'll just move this. I'll copy this down to the start. So we'll start like that. So we might not have all of this to start with. We'll kind of build this up as we start. Let's just duplicate this across, and then we can just add and remove bits. So there you go. We kind of got our kind of our beats going there for the intro. Now we've got the bass going on here. I'll rename that clip actually, just so we've got too many clips with the same name, so we'll call that crash as well, because that's the crash from the original track that we sampled. So so the crash I usually put at the start of most bars, just kind of gives an intro to a track to a bar. So let's maybe filter some of this vocal in. So yes, I think we'll start introducing the vocal here, and just kind of just gently fade it up. So we'll add a filter into that. As I say, if I'm just kind of not making any noise for a little bit, it's because I'm as I say, we're doing this. I'm just doing this straight off the cuff. I haven't thought about this one at all. So it's, you're actually seeing kind of obviously what I'm producing live. So again, yeah. So what we'll do is we'll kind of filter it up using the auto filter. So what I've just done is I've just applied the auto filter, reduce it right down. So we're just letting the lows come through. In fact, I don't think I want these vocal bits. I might save these for a bit later on in the track. Maybe here. So there we go. I think we'll start it off nice and low at the start there. So so as you see, as I was moving the frequency up and down, you can see the automation move here. So I can you know, I can get it at a nice kind of level that we will kind of want to start the track at. So yeah, I kind of want to start the track there, and I'll start the automation from right down here, and then oh god, hang on. And then add another point here, so it kind of rises all the way through to that first minute mark, and then just drops straight down and goes straight into the track. So in fact, I might even extend that out a bit longer. So we're building it over half a minute. Now, one of the great features of the new Ableton, which I've been waiting for ages, is before you had just straight lines. Now, if you hold down Control Alt, if you hold down Alt and then drag on the line, you can kind of curve it up, which actually kind of gives a much smoother kind of rise when you're using a filter like this. So I'll just make it nice and curved like that. So you know, as we go over that first 30 seconds, or the second 30 seconds of the track, it kind of just gently rises that that kind of vocal sound in the background. So yeah, as I say, here we got the kind of light kick and then the strong kick, and then we've got a bit of kind of empty space here. I think I might put the light kick in there just to kind of keep that beat going. So we'll play again from 30 seconds. So because this track is quite deep, I think I think we should just introduce things slow, because it's not kind of it's not turning into kind of a big room kind of track. So we'll just kind of gently introduce the elements within the track. And I think there's a bit too much bass in this vocal part. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to put another auto filter on it, but this time we're going to take out the bottom end. So I'm going to start with it quite low. So let's just see how that sounds. It's soloed. So there we go. I'm just going to start it. So we've already got the filter going up here. So this is kind of introducing the top end of that vocal. But on the low end, we're kind of chopping a lot of the vocal off, so we haven't got we haven't got too much low end action happening in this this kind of intro, and then the low end comes in fully at that 1 minute mark. So there you go. We kind of got our first minute of it kind of sorted there. I'm not putting the real fine details into this just yet. This is going to be a basic arrangement. We kind of need to know where the song's going. So I'm just going to start coming up with the kind of basic arrangement, just getting the beats in there, so we kind of know whereabouts the kind of structure's going. So yeah, let's carry that on again. I'm going to duplicate all that over. So we got from 1 minute to 1.5 minutes there. I think we might actually keep the beat going even further. So we'll do a minute's worth of beats in there, from 1 minute to 2 minutes. Actually no. Actually, let's put a breakdown in this bit here. So if we take away the kick and put in the low kick there. So we've got we've got our first 30 seconds with no kick, and then the second 30 seconds I've got the kick in there. Then we got our mini breakdown before it comes in full at the 1 minute mark. We'll then keep that going for 30 seconds. So that's kind of the usual kind of period of time you'd have. So like a kind of a usual stock period of time in a track. And then we'll start another 30 seconds, but halfway through that we'll start like a mini breakdown, which can then go into the track, making it even bigger. So that probably doesn't make sense, but you'll see as I kind of go along. So yeah, we've got this vocal hanging around here, so we'll introduce that maybe here at this kind of breakdown, and a crash there to kind of make it apparent that we're actually going into a breakdown. So I'll play it from here, and I'll just start playing around with some of the stuff as we go along. I think I might add some more hats in here, maybe a kind of ride cymbal going on here. From here onwards, just to kind of bring it forward, and give it a bit more kind of groove and a bit more variation. So there you go, we kind of got yes, we got our first 2 minutes of the track, and as I say, this kind of mini breakdown here brings you into a kind of cool down kind of period. So you kind of you build it all up and then you take it right back down again, just to kind of build it back up again. So we got our kind of mini break happening here, and then we'll go into this cool down state, which I think will build up again for another build up for another minute maybe. And then we'll have our main kind of part of the track, our main breakdown probably. So I'll put the bass markers in there. So we've got another about a minute there going on. And I'll copy this across again. Oh, actually no, we'll leave it so it's just kicking a bass for a little bit. And I'll just kind of add bits as we go along here, because this is kind of cut and paste, kind of painting by numbers kind of thing going on. So anyway, I've gone quiet there for a bit because I've just been kind of playing around, and this is one of the best bits of kind of Ableton, is that you can just literally play the track back and just start, you've already got the bits from your loop, and you're just kind of just painting and pasting them in, just where you kind of feel that they should be. So just to kind of go over what I've kind of done so far, I'm kind of, I've got the intro, I've got this main kind of part here, and then we've got this kind of mini break happening here, taking it right back down again, so it's just kind of the kick and the bass and this kind of low vocal sound, sweeping it all back up. So we got, and then we're coming in, full again with all the kind of parts, and then we're doing this with that. Now we're going down on the cool down, so we're kind of, we're taking it really low here before the kind of this main kind of breakdown here. As you can see, I moved over this this part that I wasn't quite sure about before, this kick bass element. I think we could bring this in with this kind of breakdown happening here, because it's got that nice kind of characteristical sound of the track. And it's just basically bringing all the kind of this breakdown. People are gonna, if they don't know already, then they'll kind of recognize this track because this is the kind of main element, and this is the kind of what you're trying to do with most bootlegs, is that you kind of you're putting your feel on a track, and you're kind of teasing people because you're playing around with the track that people know, so you kind of want to hint at bits from the original, and then in the breakdown or the main part of the song, you're fully revealing it to them, and they're like, oh yes, I know that track and I love that track, and that's what you're trying to do. So either in the main breakdown here, or when it gets into the into the full part of the track, the main the final kind of big part of the track, that's when you're revealing what the track is. I think with this case though, we're going to do it in the breakdown, so we're kind of revealing all the different elements of that track. So we've got this kind of cool down kind of happening here. Now it's kind of sounding kind of sparse here. I'm going to come back to this at a later stage and kind of fill this in with all the kind of bits, all the effects, and laying some more percussion on it perhaps, but I'll come back to that a bit later. The most important part is kind of getting this kind of overall kind of layout for the track, overall kind of arrangement, and then we can go from there. It makes it a lot easier kind of knowing how your track's going, as to what effects you're going to need to put on. And the more you kind of do tracks like this, you'll have kind of these things coming in your head. You'll be like, well, I kind of want a riser going in there. So you're building these tracks, knowing that you're going to come back and you might put a riser going in there, or some white noise, or some effects going on in there. You've got it in your own head. That's what you're going to do. So you'll come back and fix that later. The most important part is you're kind of putting these building blocks in here to kind of figure out how you're going to how this track's going to generally build, kind of what the main parts of the track are. I mean, we could put like little kind of markers at the top here where we kind of want things to come in, but it's just so easy. It's a bit like Lego. You can just put these elements in here, these loops in here, and then take them away, or put them add some more elements on top of that as you go. So as I say, the most important part is getting this kind of rough structure down. So yeah, we got to here so far, and this is kind of where our main breakdown is going to happen. So so it's cooling down here. We're gradually filtering up the vocal sound, the kind of main vocal sound, and then we got this kind of this kick and kind of almost synth sound going on here, which again I think I'll either filter in from the low ends first or from the high ends first. Or maybe do some kind of reverb thing. I think that's just something we'll just have to play around with. So yeah, I'll continue on with this. Okay, so I think that's going to be what we can do with this track then. So what I'm going to do is, usually when you build a track on a breakdown, what you do is you'd have reverb on an element, and as it kind of builds, you'd kind of add more reverb and you'd filter it up. So you're getting rid of the bass before it comes back in again for the main part of the track. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in kind of in reverse to introduce this element. So I'm going to start off with 100% wet on this reverb. So all you've got is the reverb, which makes it kind of sound like it's it's a bit further away. It's that kind of that warehousey kind of feel where you're almost outside of the club, and you can kind of hear this kind of reverby kind of sound that's kind of out of time, but it's there. And I'm just going to reduce that reverb over time, just to kind of bring that element in. So I'll start at the front here with 100% reverb, and I'll just bring it right down so there's no reverb, because there's reverb on this sound anyway. So I don't want to add too much. I don't want to add too much muddiness to it when it's fully in, but it's a good way to introduce it. And I'm also going to filter it in as well. So just bring in the kind of tops of it and then filter it in that way. Actually, we moved on to the wrong bloody track, actually. There we go. So what we're going to do is, so I'm going to filter in just the top elements first. So we'll start off. And I think this is going to be a good case for using the curve again, because we just want to kind of bring this in very gradually. And what I might do is just so we can hear this really coming in, is take out the lower register of this vocal as well. So I'm going to solo this at the same time, and then play around with the auto filter on this one. So yeah, we want to take the bottom away, so we want to work with this one. So we're taking the bottom away from this one, and we're adding the bottom to the, from that one. So it's kind of almost like a crossfade. So there you go, we're kind of bringing that in nicely. So I'm going to get rid of everything else. I'm going to unsolo it rather. And now play from this breakdown bit. I'm not actually too keen on that synth sound being in there now. It seems to muddy it quite a bit. It's okay going on in here, but for some reason it's muddying this part up here. So I think we need to kind of do something more with this. Maybe we could add some elements to kind of, you know, bring it up. Maybe some effects or whatever, or maybe another synth sound, which I'll get into in a bit. But I think we kind of realised, well, I think I realised that this is kind of where the end of the breakdown will happen at this point. So we've given it, what are we giving it? We've probably given it about 1.5 minutes of main breakdown. So we don't want more than that. We don't want to take away the beats for too much longer. So so we've got this kind of cool down happening here, and for about 30 seconds. Actually, that's 45 seconds, that main break by the looks of it. But that's pretty good. That's all right. That's yeah, so we got the cool down happening here, and then we're going out into breakdown. We've got no beats going on here, and then the beats build back up again, and then we'll come back in about here, about the 4:15 mark, I think. I think this is going to end up being quite a shorter track, but we can add some more beats in here. So I'm now going to copy across the beats that we have here at the start. So this is where it's all going to come back in again. So we got a very kind of it's very kind of brash kind of you know, back into the beats there. We've got to make that smoother. And I think what I'm going to do is we'll be adding some more effects in here, like a riser or some white noise or something like that to kind of bridge that. But I think we can tweak some of these sounds, add some effects onto them that will help build that kind of atmosphere. Now the reverb we've already got on here, we don't want to bring it in 100%, but what we can do is to kind of build up the sound within here. We can just adjust the decay time. So the decay time will just mean that the reverb will hang around for a bit longer. So if we you know, if we increase that decay time, the more stuff that happens within that synth bit, you know, it will just keep carrying on. It will build and build and build on top of each other, and you know, kind of yeah, help build this kind of rise into the main part. So again, we've got the reverb wet dry kind of automating. So now we need to automate the decay time. So it's about a minute. Oh, sorry, a second. It's a second long at the moment. And what I'll do is I'll just increase it to, oh no, something silly like 10 seconds. And that will hopefully then kind of build on as it goes up here. So we'll just listen back to that. Okay, that's probably not enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase that a bit more and also bring it back here, so it kind of the reverb starts building a bit earlier on. I think we'll also do something similar with this vocal sound actually, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to a send. Now these are the default ones that come with the track. We don't want them, so I'm going to create a new send track. And this is kind of good for if you are trying to you know, create risers and stuff, because yeah, if you put too much reverb on a track, you've got the wet dry on a track here. So the more wet you add to it, the less dry there is. So if you're building on something, you know, you kind of want the dry there, but you want to add on top of it. Whereas the dry wet will be taking away some of the dry as it adds the wet. So by using the send, you can have the best of both. So you can have all the dry and add the wet on top of it. So I'm gonna cancel these the reverb that I've added here, and yes, with the decay time we don't want that. We don't want the dry wet on that. So I'm going to forget that, and instead I'm going to use a return channel, and I'm going to put the reverb on that. I'll put that 100% wet because we just want that coming out the send channel, and we'll put a big decay time on it as well. We don't want the bottom end, so I'm going to cut the bottom end and I'm going to uncut the high end because we kind of want a lot of the high end. I'm also going to move this up in frequency, so this is kind of this is just taking effect. The reverb is only going to take effect on the top end of the of whatever's coming through it. And you know, as we come to the end of our breakdown, we're kind of taking away the bottom end of the of all that's going on, so that when the main part comes back in again, we've got full force, we've got all the bass, the kick, everything else. So we're kind of, you know, we're sweeping it up. And if you're a DJ, then obviously you're probably very familiar with doing that. You'll be taking the bottom end out of a track with the EQ. Very much the same thing, you know, that's what we're trying to achieve here. So we already have the bottom end cutting out the bottom of that. Now we need to do the send to that reverb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the automation for that, and I'll just increase it to full as it gets to about here. So we'll just see how that sounds on its own. In fact, if I solo this, then it will solo that synth kind of kick bass part and the reverb that's happening as well. So I can play around with that. So we've got a real nice kind of build there going on. I think we might need to have that reverb a bit longer actually, and in full a bit longer as well, because you know, we kind of want to build that sound. So I'm going to curve it up so we have more of the reverb coming through. Let's try it again. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it out here, so we just have the reverb kind of just lasting nicely, so everything's taken away. So we've got that nice kind of breather before everything comes back in again. And I'm going to do exactly the same with the vocal as well. I'm going to reverb that right up as well. So we're going to have that peak into about here, and then also draw the curve on there. So let's see how that sounds all together. So it's not quite creating the impact that we want at the moment, but you know, it's kind of getting there. And right now I kind of want to I'm gonna forget about that for a minute. I kind of got, that's the idea. I know how long the breakdown is going to be, so I just want to fill out the rest of the track now, so we kind of got an idea of you know, I've got an idea of the full structure. So I'm going to not worry about that breakdown at the moment. I'm going to move on to just finishing off this track. So everything's coming back in again here. There you go. So I've just been filling it out a bit there. I've just kind of gone through kind of the process that I usually kind of do for finishing off the track. So after when the main part comes in, you've usually got about a minute's worth, or maybe a minute and a half's worth of kind of main part of the track. So this is full energy. This is the full part of the track. This is all the elements that you've taken from your loop, plus any other elements that you want to put on top of that. And then you've got the outro, which is usually about usually about a minute's worth of beats, just generally kind of coming out of the track. So yeah, I've got the full part going on here for about a minute. I think it's about a minute. Yeah, it's about a minute, and then you got a minute's worth of outro. So here I've dropped the bass. Obviously, we've just got the kick going on here. So I've just got that kind of mini break going on here. So at the end of everything, it kind of breaks away just for a few beats, and then the percussion comes in. That's just one of my little tricks. Yeah, so this is just the kind of standard outro where we take we have the kick. And then we take away the bottom end on the kick, so we've got the light kick going on, and it's almost echoing the start of the track, really. And in fact, I quite like the way this vocal's kind of very low in the background. I think this might work quite nicely at the start as well. So I might copy this across. So we've got this. There's quite a lot of bass happening within this vocal as well. I don't want to take too much away from the bottom end. I'm going to take a little bit more off of it, just so it doesn't counteract the rest of the kick and the bass. But I think we might need to put a side chain on that just to make sure that it doesn't affect it that much more. But I'll keep that for now and see how that goes. But as you can see, I mean, I've just zoomed out here and we've now got the kind of full track in its kind of arrangement. So we've got the intro, we've got that main kind of bit, we've got a mini breakdown happening here. Everything gets dropped back down again to just the bass and the kick and the vocal part. Then we build it back up again before the cool down, and then we have the breakdown, and then everything comes back in again, and then you've got this outro on the end. So that's kind of that's how I usually build. House tracks. Usually on my tracks, I usually have a breakdown at the start here. But for this style of track, because it is quite low, we're not want to. We're not building up too much at the start. This is kind of this is no nonsense. Just go straight kind of into the kind of main part of the track, the kind of bass. So now we have this kind of arrangement here, a very kind of basic arrangement here, and now is the kind of fun bit. This is where we start adding bits into it that will kind of bring it on a bit further. So I'm going to move to the start of the track again, and I'm just going to start playing it through and then seeing what other elements that we can add to it. So we've got the vocal going on here. I think maybe this first little bit here, we're going to start adding some effects in maybe, and yeah, seeing how that goes. It's quite hard to kind of find effects. You can be here for ages, and I'm very conscious that obviously I'm doing this screencast, so I want to kind of keep this kind of nice and short for you guys. Now obviously if you're building a track, then an original track, then obviously you're going to spend probably a lot longer on this, trying to figure out what kind of finding the perfect effect, the perfect snare drum, the perfect kick and everything else like that. But with a bootleg, you're not going to be selling this one. You're not going to be, unless somehow this becomes like an official remix at some stage, in which case you'd still redo it and you'd still remaster it. But the whole purpose of a bootleg is that you put it together really quickly. So things might not quite work. They might not be perfect, but they're just they're in there, and it kind of works for that gig that you have, or that festival that you're playing. It just works. Nobody's gonna sit down there and analyze every single bit that you've done within the track. You put things in there that work. So I'm going to put this effect in there. I'm not 100% sure with it yet. I mean, I might have to play around with it a bit more, but it kind of gives that kind of effect that I'm looking for. It's kind of what I'm after. It's not perfect, but I'm conscious of this being a screencast, so I'm going to get that in there now, so so we can move forward with this anyway. So what I might do with that is put a bit of reverb on that, because this is sounding very clean, very electronic. So I kind of want that to sound, a bit more kind of got a bit more atmosphere to it rather than that clean. So we're going to put a load of reverb on it first. I'm also going to put an EQ on it because it's probably got a load of bottom end that I don't really want. In fact, we'll just wash it out with loads of reverb. In fact, we don't need the low, we want the high though. So where's our kick in that? Now, I think what I want to do is just drop away. So there's a little breather here. By that I mean I'm just gonna have the clap. So I'm gonna lose the hi-hat from this bit just here, just to kind of give it that little breather. So if you hear what I mean, so we just got the clap in here. So I mean, maybe on a breakdown you'd have the riser, rising right to the end of the bar, and then it goes into the into the next part. However, it's often nice to kind of get that kind of just a little break before the break in sound before the next part comes in. So I'm doing the riser up to the snare, and then we just have the clap on its own. So we'll see how that sounds. Yeah, so there we go. We've got this kind of this kind of nice break in the sound there. I might also group all of these drum sounds together, the main percussion sounds anyway, and put some reverb on it just in the breaks, just to give us a bit of atmosphere, and to just to make for example, with that clap happening on its own, it sounds, because there's nothing else happening, it sounds very kind of dry. So I'm going to just put a bit of reverb on there, put the decay time up so that kind of decay kind of fills that gap there. So that's probably about 3.5 seconds. So I'm just going to, I'll set it about 3.5 seconds, I reckon that is. Yeah, I'll take down actually no, the dry wet will automate, so I'll take that down to 0. And then because this is the group channel, so I'm going to name this because this is the drums. I'm just going to now filter out that wet dry, and have just so that kind of reverb kind of bridges that gap just there, and then we'll bring it back to fully dry here. So let's just see how that sounds. So there you go. We've kind of got stuff going already. I might actually put a little bit of a white noise in that as well. Let's try one of these. A bit of long white noise that we can reuse. So that's a bit extra. That's a bit too much. But what we'll do is we'll take away some of the bottom end. I apologise if that just killed your speakers. But that's just what it's been previewing at. Should probably turn that down. Yes, so I'm taking out all the bottom end of that white rise, because it's just white noise, and what we're looking for is that kind of hissing sound, that kind of CO2 cannon kind of sound, which is all high end. That's all. That kind of that wispy kind of sound. There's probably a lot of low end on this effects, and when you're using effects like this in a track, you're not going to need a lot of that bottom end unless you're doing those kind of sub drop kind of things, that kind of the booms, then you're not going to need that kind of bottom end. So cut away as much as you need, and also put them really low in the mix as well, because I'll put this at like -30, and it just kind of adds something to it. I might need to increase that, but we'll just... So there you go, we kind of got our little riser thing happening there, and we can use that trick again, within the rest of the track. So, I mean, say for example, in this little mini break here, we'll copy this across, and we'll add that to there. and we'll also automate the reverb again on this, on the drums, on this breakdown here. So we're already kind of building this up quite nicely. We're reusing parts that we've got in here, and in fact, let me just. I'm sorry if the audio kind of goes out of sync for some reason. This buffer size seems to be a bit funny. So I'm just going to change this over, and hopefully that'll put things in time again. If anybody's got any suggestions on how best to use this sound flower. This is just what I'm using to record the screencast with, just so you can hear so the mic's not going through Ableton and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, back to the track. So yeah, so we're reusing parts in here, and speed is of the essence. Like I say, if you're creating this bootleg, you're probably doing this a day before a gig, or even just a few hours before a gig. So you kind of want to get these stuff in there really quickly and reuse the different parts within the track, so that you're not sample digging for ages. So we've got the rise going on there. Yeah, so the rise at this bit. No, actually, no, not that bit. That's the nice bit. The main break, we're going to have we'll put the risers back in on this bit here. And actually, yes, we missed that one as well. We need that. So I'll go over that in a bit. I've just chucked that over there, and we'll work on that in a bit. But I just want to duplicate this across to remind me that that's where that's going to go. So we're back to start again, and we've got this main breakdown, this first little mini breakdown happening here. Now, as mentioned here, I think this is just this is quite a common thing these days, is to use kind of ride cymbals to kind of get the kind of groove kind of moving along with house tracks. So I'm going to get some I think I get some nice kind of loose kind of hi-hats happening. So I'm going to just delve into one of these packs. Let's see if I can find some nice hats going on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play it along with it, because I find this is the easiest way to do it. So if I click on raw, so this doesn't play it back in time, and then I can, if I use my arrow keys on my keyboard, if I press the right key, I can just trigger this again and again. So I'm going to play it along with the track. Actually, it doesn't seem to be any rides in this pat. Maybe that might work. No, that's not quite. No, that's not kind of working. So to cut a long story short, I just did that thing that I told you not to earlier. That spent loads of time trying to find a sample. It's taken me ages just to go through and try and find the right hat sample. You get locked in these kind of these kind of loops in trying to going through all your sample packs, trying to find just that right hi-hat or whatever. It can be different for each track depending on the kind of sound you're going for, and trying to find that that right hi-hat. I think I found in this one here, it seems to go quite nicely across there. So I'm going to drop that on there. I'll just start audition it. I'll get rid of the fade because I bet it's added fades. Yeah, we don't want the fades. And I'm just going to loop this up. So we've got the kick and we want it happening on the offbeat. So just duplicate that up a bit and then see how that sounds. So that's sounding pretty good. It's not quite how I want it, but it's near enough to how I want it. So I'm just going to make that into a loop now. In fact, I'll take the start off that, move it over to here, and then we've got a full loop happening there. So I'm going to join that up. There we go. So we got our nice little loop of rides there. And I'm going to put some effects on it now because I want to make sure that I think it needs a bit of reverb there just to make the tails a bit longer. So I've actually put it in double time there. So we got the hat happening twice a beat, just with the loop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the same same side chain, the LFO tool that we have on the bass, and I'm going to put it on the hi-hat so it ducks the first one. So so this is what it sounds like without the LFO tool. So. And now I'm going to put the LFO tool on. So it's kind of got this nice kind of ridey kind of sound to it, and it's kind of just ducking that first one away, but you've got a kind of nice feel from it. This still help the groove on a bit, I think. So let's just see how that sounds. So there you go, kind of got our ride in there. I'm going to rename that ride. So as mentioned after that first breakdown, we're going to bring that ride in. you go. We're starting to build this now. We've got the ride in there. So that's kind of percussion moving on a bit more. I think we need to make it a bit more interesting here. So we've got the vocal, those vocal stabs coming in here. What I'm going to do is, this is the part where you can just play around and see how you get along with this kind of stuff. I'm just going to, I've just taken a copy of that that vocal stab there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try reversing it and seeing how that sounds. Might take a while. Actually reversing the whole track. I should probably bounce that down first, but never mind. Okay, that didn't quite work. What we can do is another little fact that I kind of use quite a lot is creating a kind of creating a reverb or reverse reverb from a piece of vocals. This kind of helps you kind of it's a good tool to use when you're creating build-ups. And I think I've shown it in one of my other tutorials. So what I'm going to do is we've got this kind of vocal stab here. So that's quite nice as a stab, but what would be good if we had something that kind of led up to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new audio channel on here, and I'm going to copy this across. Now I'm going to solo this one and take the volume down because this is going to be just dry now. So what I'm going to do now is put a lot of reverb on it. So I'm going to put 100% reverb, and I'm going to put the decay time up really high. So so this is kind of how long you want the kind of build to be. If you want it going over the whole of your breakdown, if your breakdown's like 30 seconds, then whack this up to about 30 seconds or more, or less. It's up to you. I think we'll stick with about 20 seconds, I think, because I think that's going to be more than enough. So let's hear how that sounds. Right, we've got too much low end there. We want to get rid of the low end. We don't want any of that in there. That's just making it all muddy. So that sounds kind of good, just as a kind of it's an extended hit, so it's making it as an extended hit. But we kind of want that reversed, so we kind of want it to kind of build. Now what I could do is I could do the reverb like this, and then just reverse it afterwards. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse this one first. In fact, I'll make it into its own clip first. So I'm going to consolidate it first into its own clip. In fact, I'll make sure that the fades are, there's no fades on the front of that. So I'm going to consolidate that into its own clip first. And again, get rid of the fades because it keeps adding them. And now I'm going to reverse that little clip there. So now we're going to have this reverb from here onwards. That's kind of leading up to this. So if think of it in reverse. We're kind of building this reverb up to here, which is what we'll be doing the opposite way around, up to one of these. It's quite hard to explain here, but what I'm going to do is I'll just bounce it down and you'll be able to see from there. So let's just take this loop region. and we want to bounce it down for that amount of time. So we'll just bounce down that clip there. We'll call it, we'll call this vocal reverse verb. So bounce that down. That's bounced down, and now we don't need this anymore, so we're going to get rid of that for now. And we don't need the reverb anymore. Actually, no, I'll keep the reverb on there. I'm just going to mute that. We'll need the EQ. And now if I jump to the project folder where I've saved it and bring it in, that's kind of what it looks like. So that's what we've just bounced out, which is great. Now we want this to be reversed because we want it to build. So I'm going to click reversed. And now we'll be able to use this as this nice kind of rise. So this is where the original comes in, just there. So that's a kind of replication of that. So we don't need that, and we just need that there. There we go. So I'm going to I'll increase the volume of the clip, and then I can adjust from here. So there you go, we've got another texture in there now for our rise. So we'll see how that sounds in the mix. Okay, that's quite low in the mix. We'll pump that up a bit more. I think we might need to put a bit more, take a bit of the lower end and pump up some of the higher end on that. There you go, hopefully you can hear that now. It's kind of just this kind of sucking sound almost. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that same kind of snare trick. So the snare would probably hit about here, I think. Yep, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it that kind of breather, so do it to there. And we'll probably hear that more now. I think that's ending just a little bit too sharply, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of reverb on that. So again, take the decay time right down on that, and we just want maybe a little bit. So let's just see how it sounds. Yeah, that's better. Just so it's not as sharp. Just that little bit of reverb on there. Maybe not. Yeah, I actually won't bother with that gap there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think it works in that context, so I'm not going to bother with that. So we've got this nice little reverb bit here. We can use this several different times within the track. So what I might do is I might use it on the main part here, just here, I think. There we go. So it's, so we can use that there. We'll tweak that a bit later. But we've got this nice little break happening here. I hear it, the more I'm not sure of that synth part actually. It's sounding quite thick in the middle there. So if you see there, I did it a minute ago, but I'm just playing around with the transpose on these on the vocal clips just to give us some more kind of interesting sounds. So the original is kind of got this is what the original pitch, and then we got another one which is a -3 semitones, and then I've gone down a full octave and gone down 12 semitones. So it's kind of it's less distinguishable. So you can't really hear the quality of what it is. You're not actually 100% sure what it is, but it kind of adds a texture into there. So it's kind of nice, deep kind of vocally kind of dark kind of sound. And I think it just adds a little something to it. I think, and it kind of works with the fact that we're taking it nice and deep and down for the breakdown. there you go. We're kind of building it up a bit more there. You know, we're using some of the elements that we've had earlier on in the track, like the ride kind of just makes the groove go along a bit further there. I think we're kind of missing something here. We're missing something that's kind of going to bring it up a bit further. Maybe another effect. Maybe some kind of synth rising. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with this bit yet. I'm going to have another listen to it. I think what we might do is separate the claps out from this hat clap loop that we got going on here and put plenty of reverb on it. I think that might help. We'll try that as an idea anyway. So I'm just going to cut out the clap there and I'm just going to duplicate that across. So we kind of got that. I think we need some kind of drum roll here or a fill. And I think what we can do is we can actually use one in the original mix that I've got here. I've got the Lick My Candy remake, which has a really nice kind of it's got a really nice kind of roll, a kind of drum fill going on in this remix. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually we'll create a new track for this, for the drum roll. I know it's within the track somewhere when we were listening to it earlier. I'll just have a play through. So I think that's the actual drum, the drum hit there, the drum fill. So we'll see if we can use this. So we just need to EQ this, put a bit of reverb on it, I think. In fact, the original track, if I remember, has this on the build-up. So what we might do is maybe use this on as we're building it up. Let's see. can hear it slightly. What I'm trying to do here is trying to get rid of that kind of vocal sound that's happening, the kind of vocal effect that's in the background of there. It's just that kind of breathing sound. I thought there's way too much reverb happening there. We've left the I left the send open, and it's just filling the track up there. I'm not quite sure if this is working yet, but I'm going to pursue it, keep going on with it. I'm hoping there's a cleaner drum fill sample than that, because that is just got too much going on. Okay, I found a single drum sample there. I wonder if I can actually just remake that. Oh, I've deleted the other one. Didn't mean to do that. Let's see if we can get that one back. There we go. Right, so that's the one I've just cut out. So let's see if we can replace this and remake it. Actually, that one sounds better. At least we haven't got that vocal sound happening. Yeah, that's better. So there we go. I think that's sounding a bit better now. So we've got a lot of stuff going on here. It's just about building this up, and you can spend ages working with a breakdown to kind of build it to how you want it to be. So I'm just playing it back and forwards, just trying to, you know, see where we can add bits to it that will just kind of build up that kind of atmosphere. Okay, so we got the fill kind of working there. I've just I've replicated it a few times. I'm kind of recreating, you know, some of the how it's used in the original original remixes. So I've kind of you know, started that with a build up, and that's kind of helping it. It's kind of giving it a bit more. It's building up a bit further. I think we probably need some more stuff in there. What it is, I'm not sure yet. But I'm going to continue. Right, so I played around with that a bit. I think we got that as working as well as we can now. I think the only thing that's happening here is that it's building the break up right up to here, and then the main bit comes in, but there doesn't seem to be anything kind of bridging it. There seems to be this kind of it's not fluidly going into there. And I think what we can do, how we can solve that, is to do a downshifter. So like the opposite of a riser, kind of it goes down, a down sweep. So I'm going to jump into my samples and see if I can find anything that could kind of go in there. Let's see, I've got a few of these, but let's see what we can find. It's just all about kind of just making it, just gracefully go into the next part of the track. So we'll try one of these. Let's try this one in there. In fact, I might even transpose that now. So we got that kind of percussion-y sound in there. That old school. I can't even remember what track that was from. What original track sampled that one. But yeah, it's kind of old school kind of disco, almost kind of tom kind of break going on there. So I've kind of tied that in with this kind of downshifter effect. It's almost a kind of a disco-y kind of sound. So I'm just going to put that a bit lower in the mix and we'll see how that sounds. Yeah, I think that's working really nicely now. We've got checking all these filters are up. It's just we're not sounding quite as full force in this kind of bit here. I think what we need is some kind of white noise going over the top. Now, of course, you could break open one of your synths to do that. Just out of interest at time, I think I'm going to go for a pre-built one. So I'm going to try the some of these are nice. As I say, I've got a massive kind of sample library that I've built up over the years, yeah, it's just a case of finding stuff that works. I mean, I kind of use these samples on a day-to-day basis, so I kind of know where to go to find certain effects. So I'm just jumping in between these folders, but really it's just a case of if you find good samples that that you use a lot and that are effective in certain parts, then either have quick reference to them, or put them in a folder, your own custom folder, so you build up your favorites of samples that you use. Now obviously you don't want every track to sound the same, but ones that are kind of that are useful, like a ride cymbal or a kick or whatever else like that. They're not individually, you can't actually individually notice them on their own, but it will help you in the long term to put together tracks quickly. And especially if you're doing bootlegs, you don't want to be spending hours on this stuff, as I keep saying, and as I keep doing. So let's see, let's get one of these white noise effects. In fact, I'm going to loop it up so I can just play it over the top, and we can just keep trying them out. That's a real nice kind of one there. That will sit nicely over the top of it. Now, with these kind of white noise kind of effects, they're generally quite good on their own, but what I think I'm going to do is, well, I'll just up the volume a bit first, just so it's there, and then we can adjust the volume in the main channel. But what I'll do is, of course, I'm going to put an EQ over it first of all, just to make sure that there's no bottom end in there that's going to affect us. I'll just reduce the volume. So that's sounding okay in the mix. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the, again, I'm going to copy the LFO tool that we have on the bass, just so it ducks it. So here's it without it, and then with it. Just adds a bit of movement to it. So. And also these, I want to put the second vocal in there that we got, just to keep this going. Get rid of them and duplicate them across. So as you can see, I'm just putting in, I'm just kind of copying and pasting some of the bits that we've got, that we've used in the rest of the track, just to kind of, you know, build it up a little bit. You know, we've got these pieces in here. We're just going to reuse them just to kind of add variation between the bars. It's just easy to copy and paste within I said acid then, within Live. So I think we're pretty much there. I mean, we've already got the limiter on there and the glue. Well, in fact, the limiter is just giving us a preview of how we can master it. Probably what I'd do is I'm a big fan of the all-in-one the suites of mastering suites. and I tend to use a lot T-Rax. This is it's not quite a, you know, just a chuck it on and it just works, but certainly in bootleg terms, you can you know, you go for the presets on this and you'll find that it just works nicely. And as most producers out there, and you probably read plenty of forums, one of the presets obviously to go for is always loud and clear. A lot of people seem to go for this. You know, if you're you know, if you're really kind of into making your music sound crisp and perfect, and you know, and spending hours on the mastering, then go ahead and, you know, go for all your individual plugins, all your waves, limiters and compressors. That's all fine. For me, you know, when I'm making a bootleg, it needs to be quick and it needs to be instant. So I usually reach for something like T-Rax, and, you know, and like the presets within here. So loud and clear is a great preset to go for. It will certainly be better than your the standard limiter that comes with an Ableton. I mean, most of the settings in here for a bootleg I won't bother changing. I'll probably decrease the gain, because that's, you know, it's really harsh. It's a real strong gain, so I'm going to turn that down to about 3.4. And the limiter, I usually take down the input drive as well. Take that down to about 3.4, 3.5, something like that. Again, it's just about, I mean, the loud and clear preset is loud. It's really loud, and it's probably meant for people, you know, producing these big electro tracks that, you know, are compressed to hell. So, you know, by just dialing back the gain on the, you know, the clipper and the limiter, that will just help you. You got the loudness there, and you got the instant gratification of the, you know, of the loudness, but it's not overkill. So we'll just see how that sounds. I'm going to have to dial the volume back in my headphones, so we'll see how that sounds. Now that's sounding already pretty good. Now, but we've already got a glue compressor on here, and there's a compressor in the chain on T-Rax. So sometimes I'll just get rid of this compressor, just mute it or unmute it, see if it sounds better with or without. Same goes for the EQ. Sometimes, I mean, yes, you can tweak the EQ within here, but I tend to, if I'm going to EQ it, then I might put an Ableton EQ on there, or another third-party EQ, and forget about this. I mean, you can do. This has got some good features within it. Just for me, that's not how I've not what I've always done. So as I say, I mean, if they don't work, I tend to just disable it and then do it manually elsewhere. So I'm just going to play it back and then see if the compressor is needed or not. Yeah, okay, I don't like that compressor. That compressor seems to be pushing things together too much. You're not getting the kind of hits on the kick drum as you did without it. So I'm going to disable that, and we'll see what the EQ sounds like as well. I'll leave the EQ in there for now. That seems to be doing the job okay. So I hope that gives you a good idea of how I go about arranging tracks, and in this case a bootleg. It's all about getting in there really quickly and getting everything down, and you know, producing something unique for your set. So you don't want to be spending hours and hours and hours, you know, or even days on a bootleg, because you know, this is something that's going to probably last, you know, maybe you know, a couple of months at most in your set. It's just something unique for your set, and maybe if you want to give it away, that's totally up to you. But you want to be able to get it done quickly and not spend hours on it. That's for, you know, your tracks, your original tracks and your remixes. Spend plenty of time on them and, you know, perfected them. But these bootlegs, they're probably not going to be sold. They're literally just going to be for your set and maybe for your friends. So it's just a case of getting them out quickly and making sure they're effective. So just try and get those ideas out there and everything down, and you know, and that should do the trick. Now, I haven't gone into full mastering with this. A few reasons for that. Obviously, it's a bootleg, so you don't want to spend hours on mastering. It's just about, you know, coming out with the right effect, you know, the right kind of loudness, and making sure it's kind of clear. The second reason is that I'm on headphones when I'm doing this screencast, so it's a bit hard for me to try and you know, get the levels just right on headphones. There's no kind of substitute for going through proper monitors, and also, you know, testing the track out on multiple devices. So listen to it in your car, you know, on your hi-fi, through your TV, through anything you can really, and that will be able to you'll be able to hear different things in the mix that don't quite work right. So, you know, make sure you fully test it out before you play it out. But as I say, the whole point of doing the bootleg is to do it quickly and to kind of use these kind of techniques to kind of yeah, just put a track together really quick and just make it really effective. So yeah, hopefully this video, and hopefully the last one, gives you a good kind of look at how I make my bootlegs, and it just goes to show that you can put it together really quickly. I think this video has been about 2.5 hours long, so including the one before, that's about 3.5 hours to make the bootleg, and that's with me explaining everything to you as well. I'm sure, you know, once you get up to speed and you start doing these bootlegs, you'll get them done even faster than that. So as I say, you know, go ahead and go for it. If you've got any questions, if you want to send anything to me, then you can do. You can reach to me on Twitter, twitter.com/dirtysecrets. You can reach out to me on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/dirtysecrets. And, you know, you can reach me through either of them, or on Facebook for that matter. If you search up Dirty Secrets on there, you'll find me on there. You just send me a message if if you've got any ideas for tutorials, or you know, anything you want me to kind of show you how I do it, and you know, just let me know. I'm always looking for ideas for these tutorial videos, so just send me a message on any of those. So again, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you for the next one soon.